I am pleased that the United States and North Korea yesterday reached agreement on the text of a framework document on North Korea's nuclear program. This agreement will help to achieve a long-standing and vital American objective, an end to the threat of nuclear proliferation on the Korean Peninsula. This agreement is good for the United States, good for our allies, and good for the safety of the entire world. It reduces the danger of the threat of nuclear spreading in the region. It's a crucial step toward drawing North Korea into the global community. After meeting with my chief national security advisors and at their unanimous recommendation, I am instructing Ambassador Gallucci to return to Geneva on Friday for the purpose of signing an agreement. The United States has been concerned about the possibility that North Korea was developing nuclear weapons since the 1980s. 3 administrations have tried to bring this nuclear program under international control. There is nothing more important to our security and to the world's stability than preventing the spread of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Awakener podcast. It's good to be with you today. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I hope you had a happy New Year, and we're just going to get right back to it. Sometimes I take some time off. That's just the way it is. I need to spend some time with family or take a break. Sometimes there's like events in the news, like there's about 3 or 4 weeks where nothing really major happens that I want to discuss. And then all of a sudden a major incident will happen. I'll be like, oh my goodness, I want to talk about this. That incident is actually the Ursa Major, the ship that kind of sank in the Strait of Gibraltar around that area, which obviously was carrying 2 nuclear reactors meant for North Korean submarines, which brought me back. You remember at the beginning, that was Bill Clinton himself talking about how we would never have this problem back in 1994. We have an historic agreement between the United States and North Korea. There will no longer be nuclear weapons, and it's going to be setting North Korea on the right path, and all this is wonderful. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, you'll follow and you'll be like, why is he not talking about the Somalian daycares? Why is he not talking about all the corruption? And everyone's following all these major events. No, I'm not going to. We're so far deeper than that. We're so far past this, okay? Now, there's corruption everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the general population is starting to notice, and they're being shown corruption at all these levels all over the place. Well, why is that? Well, corruption is the smoke. When a society is collapsing and everything's going down the shitter, that's the sign. Well, maybe there's something deeper going on here. Maybe there's treason. If there's all this smoke, there has to be some nefarious stuff going on. And this is specifically what we talk about on this podcast. The only really interesting thing that happened out of the Somalian daycare incident that I kind of noticed was, obviously, I want to get her name right. It's Melissa Hartman. I think she's a congresswoman. She was apparently assassinated. The killer actually explained that it was Tim Walz himself that told him to kill her. And if that's the case, well, Kamala, why on earth did Kamala choose Tim Walz? Did Kamala choose Tim Walz because he has all these access to murder for hires? Is this what really is happening, ladies and gentlemen? Is there blackmail in regards to leftists that are working for Russia and China? Are there people on the right that are being blackmailed and extorted and threatened if they vote against this socialist agenda? What is really happening? As you know, ladies and gentlemen, this is all about a war. These people who come here, you think they're here to launder your money? They're here for much worse than that. They're here because it's a military operation. They're here to wait for an instruction or instructions and do what they're here planning to do. It was just to seize control. There is supposed to be something catastrophic that is coming to America, where America will be in crisis or down for the count. Something is going to happen. I've detailed how it's a North Korean EMP attack. And I've told you that during this time where there's going to be mass crisis, they're all going to come out. They're all going to come out well-fed. They're all going to come out nourished. They're going to come out with guns, and they're going to start basically government via warfare. They're going to seize control and take over. They're going to feed the people who they want to feed, and they're going to kill off those who oppose them. And this is what they're here for, ladies and gentlemen. They're here for revolution. They're here for the Soviet revolution on America, which brings me all the way back to everything that I've told you from the beginning. George Soros is a liar. These people, these globalist people, are actually working against Christians and Jews. They're working against the Western world. And this is what is really going on, ladies and gentlemen. Now, how does this relate to obviously the Ursa Major, this ship that I talked about? Well, I've talked about from the beginning that my suspicions is that Kim and the family are the mole. Well, what do I mean by that? It means that if this truly is a war where the Iron Curtain collapse was faked, that George Soros and his organizations who took control in 1993 of our media and are funding of all this left-wing provocateurs and are turning people from the inside out toward this leftist agenda and Soviet agenda, if it's really a war, ladies and gentlemen, well, how does this relate to kind of North Korea and South Korea? Well, as you know, in the Cold War, this war between North and South Korea never ended. And my suspicions are because it never ended, the United States of America spent vast resources into infiltrating the family. The family is controlled by Soviet blackmail. The leader of North Korea is actually not the real leader of North Korea, or the founder, I should say. He was apparently a South Korean that murdered a student. He was blackmailed and put in charge, and the family has been living under blackmail for decades. Threats. So why does North Korea have anything to do with anything? Well, North Korea has been chosen as the instigator of this war. Well, number one, Russia and China have agreed that they cannot possess nuclear weapons in outer space. They've signed on to the Outer Space Treaty. The United States of America signed into that agreement. And this agreement was forged, obviously, by, all the moon things that were going on and the Soviets being demoralized. Because if the Soviets weren't demoralized, they would have never signed the Outer Space Treaty. If they knew they were winning the war in space, they would never have signed the Outer Space Treaty because it would have been a huge advantage to them. All these things are related. And you've got to kind of put your tinfoil hat on. You got to go back and forth and figure all this out. Now, my suspicions are that this ship sank because somebody got tipped off. And it provides further information for me, and you can go back, that it's probably Israel that sunk this ship. The reason why is they have access to miniaturized torpedoes. They're really the only nation that I think that is capable of doing this with underwater submarines. And like I've told you from the very beginning, my thoughts are, if you look at the evidence, obviously with Syria's nuclear facility, who informed everybody? Well, probably the family. You look at what happened, obviously, with Iraq and weapons of mass destruction. Were there weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? No. Did Saddam Hussein have intentions of maybe making nuclear weapons in the future? Possibly. And who would have advised the U.S. of that happening? Well, obviously, North Korea. What happened, obviously, with Iran's nuclear program? What happened with Stuxnet? Well, Stuxnet was created, obviously, off North Korea's nuclear program. All this is kind of related, ladies and gentlemen, to my belief system that North Korea and the family are controlled by the USA, and things are not what they seem. So the communists might infiltrate us, ladies and gentlemen. They might control all these people. They might control our media system. They might control our agenda, and we might be rejecting them, and they're going away. But don't get discouraged, because the USA also controls various aspects of our enemies. And this is all boiling down to a huge power structure changing war that is going to take place very soon. I'm going to keep you up to date with when I think this war is going to happen. It obviously is going to relate to when Kim Jong-un is going to launch a couple more EMP satellites into space. Remember, Iran has one in space. This is why I kind of predicted the Israel war 6 days before it happened. And then obviously Kim was able to get one off during Biden's time in office. So all this is really happening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll keep you up to date with regards to what is happening. But the Ursa Major and the sinking of the Ursa Major, once again, is a little suspicious. How did the U.S. know? Well, did the U.S. know? Did Israel know? Who was involved in this? And there's more evidence to prove, once again, my suspicions are that Kim Jong-un is a mole, and the family is a giant mole operation. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. So much more to talk about than just Somali daycares and obviously the corruption. Realistically, you got to start thinking. You got to start thinking about blackmail. You got to start thinking about they're here for war. They're here for revolution, and put all these pieces together. It all makes complete sense once you think about it. Once you understand the relationship, obviously, with North Korea, you understand the DIA, you understand that Hillary's email investigation was started by the DIA. It wasn't even started, obviously, from the FBI. You can put the pieces together of what is happening, and that is what I do on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So if you listen to this and you're confused, wow, that was a lot of information to kind of take in. I know, and this is why I keep doing this show, because it's complicated. But if you go to theawakener.ca, it's all there for you to see. Bye for now.